Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Course channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm kicking off my new Midnight Tales marathon for you guys. And the first video I'll be reacting to is 6 Disturbing True New House Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the back, shall we? Okay, here we go.
About 2 years ago, I moved into my first real home.
Okay.
It was in a new housing estate on the edge of a quiet Australian town. Fresh concrete, wide streets, and barely any neighbors. I was one of the first to move in, which at the time felt kind of exciting.
You know, that's the thing. If I ever moved out of my parents' home and moved to my own house, it would be nice to find a place that the neighbors are just far away or you don't hardly have any neighbors. That means you got the whole area to yourself, basically. But anyway, let's continue on with this guy's story.
It was just me, my dog Jeb, and all the independence I could ever want. Most of the surrounding lots were still dirt patches, and aside from one house directly across the street that looked almost finished, the place was pretty empty. That house didn't even have a driveway yet, and I never saw any signs of life coming from it. No cars, no lights, nothing. Just a hollow shell across the road. A little way down from my place, there was this weird hill sitting on council-owned land. Huge, fenced off, and completely off limits. No one was allowed to build on it, and apparently no one was even supposed to go near it. I never understood why, but I also didn't care enough to find out. It just loomed there like a forbidden backdrop.
Well, if somebody tells you you're not supposed to go near a certain part of this development, then don't go near it. And don't even ask questions why. All you need to know is that nobody's going to be building there. They're just throwing dirt over there as a dump site for that when they get done digging up ground to start building houses. But I would be kind of curious too. Hopefully no illegal stuff is happening underneath that mountain, like they're trying to hide something. But I'm just guessing right now, so let's just keep listening to this guy's story and see what else he can dig up.
The only other real landmark in the area was this old, abandoned farmhouse a few kilometers away. It was totally falling apart, but I used to walk there with Jeb just to explore. There was something cool about having all that emptiness around me. But then, about a month or so after I moved in, things started getting weird. One morning, just before sunrise, I woke up to the sound of a violin. Not a happy, energetic tune. This was slow, almost mournful. It echoed faintly in the distance. Honestly, I thought it was kind of beautiful at first. I assumed the house across the street had finally gotten new tenants, and maybe one of them played.
I don't think so, dude. There's probably somebody that owns a violin, yes, but they're probably squatters playing music with that thing. But if it gets close to your house, that means they're watching you or trying to intimidate you with that music. Well, I don't know. That already sounds weird already. To hear somebody play music in a house that don't even seem like it was moved in yet. Very odd.
But when I peeked out the window, it looked exactly the same. Empty. Still, I figured it was nothing. Until it happened again. And again. Every couple of days I'd hear that same violin, always early in the morning. It would only last for maybe 30 to 45 seconds, then stop like it had never happened. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. One morning, as soon as I heard the music, I jumped out of bed, threw on my robe, and stepped outside. The air was chilly, the sky barely lit. That's when I saw something, or someone, up on that hill. There was a figure, tall, thin. They were slowly turning in a circle while playing, like they were dancing. It was surreal. I blinked and turned for a second to grab the paper off the driveway. When I looked back, the music had stopped, and the figure was standing completely still, facing me. We just stood there, not moving, just staring at each other through the morning haze. I couldn't see any details, just a silhouette. After about 30 seconds, I got spooked and went back inside. After that, little things started happening. I'd see footprints in the dirt on empty lots, ones I hadn't made. Tools would show up out of nowhere, like spades or rakes, just left lying around. I assumed they belonged to construction workers, though I never actually saw any. Then I started getting hang-up calls at work. No one on the other end, just silence. I stopped walking out to the old farmhouse. The hill and the violin had shaken me up enough already, but it was that one night I'll never forget. It was late. I had my headphones on, gaming with the lights off like I usually did. I got up to grab a beer from the fridge, and as I turned back toward my desk, I noticed something out the small window by the fence. Two faint lights, like glowing dots, hovering just above the fence line. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I walked closer, staring at them, and only when I was nearly nose to glass did I realize those weren't lights. They were eyes, human eyes, wide open, unblinking. Someone was watching me, standing just on the other side of the fence. I completely froze. My body locked up, like every part of me had been unplugged. Then, like a switch flipped, I dropped to the floor and crawled behind the wall. My heart was pounding so loud I swear I could hear it through the floorboards. That's when the violin started playing, right outside the window. It was louder than I'd ever heard it, and the tune was different this time, angry, frantic. Notes were being missed, the strings were screeching. It was like whoever was playing was losing control. Jeb barked once from the backyard, just once, but it was enough. The music stopped immediately. The silence that followed was almost worse. I didn't dare move. Then Jeb let out another bark, deep and low. That's when I heard footsteps. Someone was walking around the side of the house. I finally snapped out of it. My fear gave way to something else, panic for my dog. I scrambled to the back door, unlocked it, and slid it open as quietly as I could. Jeb was standing there like a statue, locked onto something in the dark. I tried pulling him back in, but he wouldn't budge. That's when he let out a bark that was so deep, so aggressive, I nearly jumped. It was like a warning shot. And then, I heard the footsteps again. But this time, they weren't just walking. They were dancing. Whoever it was moved in a strange rhythm, like they were twirling slowly while stepping away from the house. It was wrong. Like a horror movie playing out in real life. When the sounds finally faded, Jeb relaxed and walked back inside. I followed, locked every door, and spent the night under the blankets with him at my side. I didn't sleep at all. That was the last time I ever saw, or heard, the violin player. The next morning, I called in sick and contacted the police. They found a bunch of footprints near the side of my house, but nothing they could do with. No real leads. Just a tall figure seen once in the distance, and some haunting music no one else had ever reported. The officers were kind, said they'd patrol the area for a few nights. But no one ever came forward. No one else heard the music. And that hill? Still off limits, still fenced up, still mysterious. Since then, people have moved into the neighborhood. The stories made the rounds, and now the hill's earned a nickname, Violin Hill. I've even heard parents use the story to scare their kids into behaving. I've tried searching for the tune online, hoping to find something that matched what I heard, but nothing ever came close. I think whoever played it must have made it up. That's the creepiest part to me. I still live in that same house, still game at night. Only difference is, the blinds are always closed now.
Hey, I don't blame you. I would have done the same thing too. Because that'd be creepy that that guy you saw with the violin came down to your house just to stare into the window through the fence. That's creepy. So that tells you that abandoned farmhouse wasn't even abandoned at all. That guy's probably snuck in there and he's living there, and nobody don't even notice it. And since all these houses were built up right in that same area and nobody else had a counter with them, that probably that guy probably figured to back off in that area and just play the violin in this house. Maybe, I don't know what's going on with that, but that is strange. It sounds like this guy is a total mental nutcase. You can tell that he's like that because he's dancing in his backyard without any music playing. So that tells you somebody needs to go get him and take him to a mental place, if that's the case. But if it doesn't bother nobody again, then the cops won't be going to that house to find him. But that is strange that you move into a neighborhood and you start hearing violin music, and it's not coming from one of the vacant houses. Let's get on to story number 2, shall we?
A few years ago, I was living alone in a rental house in Northern California, tucked just outside the suburbs.
Sounds nice.
It was a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that felt peaceful and private without being too remote. There weren't any streetlights, so at night it got really dark, especially if the sky was overcast. But honestly, I liked it. It made the place feel cozy, almost like I was living in a little cabin. One night in midwinter, I got home from work after a long shift and some unexpected overtime. It was pitch black outside, the clouds were thick, and the only thing lighting up my house was the glow from the porch light and my car's headlights.
You know, the way he's describing this neighborhood sounds like a place I wouldn't mind living in either, but I would rather be in an area that has street lights, because if I decide to walk on the streets at night, I gotta have some form of light just to see where I'm going, just to be precautious, you know. But let's continue with this guy's story.
As I stepped out of the car, I caught the faint smell of cigarette smoke in the air. It was strange. I didn't smoke, and I'd never smelled it in the area before. But I didn't see anyone around, so I brushed it off and went inside. I was exhausted, so I took a quick shower and went to bed early, maybe around 7. I wasn't even fully asleep when I suddenly woke up, certain I'd heard a noise inside the house. Now, I wasn't immediately panicked. My friend sometimes stopped by after work to use the shower before heading to his night classes, and I had given him a spare key for that exact reason. But he always let me know beforehand. I reached for my phone on the nightstand to check if I missed a message. The screen lit up blindingly bright. This was back when phones didn't automatically adjust to darkness, and mine could light up a room like a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I saw it was sometime after 9 p.m., but there were no new texts. Still half asleep, and not really alarmed yet, I called out my friend's name. That's when I heard it. Heavy footsteps, suddenly sprinting across the first floor of the house. In a flash, I was out of bed and diving into the closet. The upstairs layout was simple. 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway, and a bathroom at the far end.
Oh man, I wish you did not do that, because if there's people breaking into your house, they'll know that you're there and try to figure out which room you're in and grab you. But thank God he did the right thing and got out of bed and tried to hide in the closet.
As I yanked open the closet door, I heard whoever it was charging up the stairs. I climbed inside and reached up for the attic access hatch that was in the ceiling of the closet. I was barely pulling myself into the attic when the person ran past my bedroom door and into the bathroom. That moment of distraction was the only reason I got up there in time. I had just curled my legs up into the attic when the bedroom door slammed open. I was crouched just a couple feet from the hatch, heart racing, barely breathing. From that spot, I could only see down to the person's legs. They were wearing old jeans and dirty work boots. They checked the closet, but luckily didn't think to look up. A few seconds passed before they stepped back. Then came a loud crash and a shout of pure rage. The sound of it brought back some seriously bad memories. It reminded me way too much of the way my stepfather used to scream when he lost control. before he ended up in a mental institution. The guy stormed back down the stairs, flipping over furniture and tossing stuff around. I didn't dare move. I didn't even have my phone with me. It was still on the nightstand. I just sat there in the attic, counting. When I finally reached 1,000 in my head, I decided it might be safe. I carefully climbed back down into my room. My mattress had been flipped completely upside down, probably the crash I'd heard earlier. My phone was gone, but luckily I still had a landline by the bed. I called the police, then stayed put until I heard them announce themselves from downstairs. The place was a wreck. Chairs overturned, couch flipped, books and decorations scattered everywhere. In the kitchen, the cabinets had been emptied. Boxes and cans were all over the floor.
Makes you wonder what that person was looking for. I mean, was he a homeless guy and looking for food, or was he trying to steal something valuable? But then when he heard him holler out of his room, he had to go investigate. But man, I can't believe that guy took his phone. If you're thinking about going into an attic or hiding somewhere, always grab your phone, because you never know, somebody might see it and think about grabbing it to steal it. Oh man, I'm so sorry this guy went through that.
But the weirdest part? The only thing missing was one kitchen knife. The cops did a full sweep of the property. The side door had been forced open, probably with a crowbar. Out by the fence line, they found cigarette butts, foil, and an empty pen tube. Stuff they said people used to smoke meth, which meant whoever broke in had likely been watching my house for a while. That cigarette smell I'd noticed earlier? He was probably standing just outside the fence when I pulled into the driveway. They told me to stay with a friend or relative and get the door repaired immediately. I decided not to sleep at all that night. I barricaded the broken door with a bookshelf and just stayed up cleaning. Every so often, I'd shine a flashlight out at the yard, but I never saw anything. The next day, I got the door fixed and installed motion lights along the sides and back of the house. I also ran a phone line up to the attic, so I'd never be without a way to call for help again. Nothing else ever happened after that night. I stayed in that house for another 3 years without incident. But one thing did change. I started practicing. I'd run drills on how fast I could get out of bed, into the closet, and up into the attic. Even when I moved into a new place, I kept the routine going. My new closet has a crawl space instead of an attic, but the idea is the same. I try not to think too hard about what would have happened if I hadn't reacted as fast as I did, or if that guy hadn't decided to check the bathroom first.
You know, that's clever in putting a phone line up in the attic, because you never know how long you're going to stay up there when somebody breaks into your home. So you might need a landline to call the police quick and have them show up in an instant and arrest the guy that breaks in. And you can come down from your hiding spot quicker. But that was also a good idea for him to practice doing them drills, going out of the bed. I mean, getting up out of the bed and going up in the attic through the closet. Just in case if he has to go through that again, which I hope he don't. I hope they put a APB out on this person, because if he's got a kitchen knife, he might go into somebody else's house and kill him with that thing. You never know.
This happened back in 2013 when I was 17. My family had just started looking at this new house near a river. Really nice spot, quiet, with a great view. The place was a 2-story home, kind of tucked away, and the guy who built it was still the owner.
Love to find a 2-story home near a riverside property, but to be honest with you, I'd rather have the house built further away from the river, because if you get like strong hurricane storms or just heavy rainstorms, this would overflood and probably get to the foundation of the house and weaken it.
He met up with us while we were touring it, and at first glance, he came off like a totally normal, friendly older man. Talked a lot with my parents, cracking jokes, just really upbeat. I was kind of just hanging back while they chatted. not really paying attention but glancing up every now and then. And then I caught something that seriously shook me. Mid-conversation, there was this brief pause where the man looked away from my parents. His face instantly changed. Like instantly. 1 second he's laughing, and the next he had this look of pure hate and malice. The scowl on his face wasn't just angry, it was dark and hateful, almost like a totally different person. He didn't even notice me watching, probably thought I was looking at my phone. But then he turned back to my parents, and bam, smiling again like nothing ever happened. That image stuck with me. It creeped me out so bad I told my mom about it. She agreed it was strange, but brushed it off, said maybe he was just socially awkward or something. Anyway, we ended up buying the house. Fast forward a week or so after we moved in. It was a Sunday morning, and my family decided to go to church. I didn't feel like going, so they left me home alone. It was around 11 a.m. when I started hearing this loud banging coming from the side of the house. I was upstairs, on the opposite side, and it was storming out, so at first I chalked it up to wind or something hitting the side paneling. But this banging had a rhythm to it.
First of all, I'll tell that mother socially awkward my foot, without being disrespectful, of course. Because if that guy has a mean expression and he's looking towards your kid, but then when you start talking to him, he kind of goes back into a smiley face look and starts talking with you guys again, something ain't right here. He's probably mentally disturbed. I mean, that's what I'm getting off of what he's talking about, this guy. And if you hear banging on the side of the house, and it's more like in the rhythm like this, then that'd be like somebody actually outside banging on the house. So I figured it might be the old man came back. I don't know why. He already sold the house, so he shouldn't be there anymore.
Like it was being done on purpose. It lasted for maybe 5 minutes, then stopped. I shrugged it off, until about 10 minutes later. That's when I started hearing noises inside the house, steps on the first floor, furniture being moved, the sound of kitchen drawers opening. I even heard the fridge door creak open. That's when it hit me. Someone was in the house. My heart dropped. I immediately locked my bedroom door, grabbed the metal baseball bat I kept nearby, and called 911. While I was talking to the dispatcher, I also texted my mom and told her someone had broken in. She was about 30 minutes away, but she immediately said she was heading home. The dispatcher told me officers were about 10 minutes out. Meanwhile, I could hear the person walking through the house like they knew the layout. Each step was getting closer to the stairs, and then I heard them coming up, step by step. It was like a horror movie, and I was the only one there. I was barely 5'2", maybe 100 pounds. I knew if this guy came in, the bat in my hand wouldn't do much. Then I heard him stop right outside my bedroom door. The handle jiggled, locked, and then nothing. He didn't say anything, didn't try to force it, just stood there, breathing. I could hear him breathing through the door. It couldn't have lasted more than 10 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. Then he turned and walked away. I heard him go down the stairs. Then the back door opened and shut. A few minutes later, the police pulled up. The dispatcher asked if I could go down and let them in, or if they needed to break the door. Since I hadn't heard anything else, I went downstairs and let them in myself. They searched the whole house. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, nothing stolen, just empty. My mom got there a few minutes later. First thing she did was look at my stepdad and ask, "You changed the locks already, right?" He hadn't. That was when I really started to freak out. But then came the part that really confirmed everything I experienced. My mom had just vacuumed the upstairs hallway the night before. You could see fresh shoe prints in the carpet. Big ones. Way too big to belong to anyone in our family. And the weirdest part? They stopped right outside my bedroom door. The cops hadn't even gone upstairs yet, so we knew it wasn't them. The guy who sold us the house. He died about a year after that. I don't know what happened to him. We never talked to him again after we moved in. But I always wondered if he still had a key. If maybe he'd been in that house before, after he sold it. Or maybe he never really let it go. So yeah, please, if you ever move into a new place, change the locks.
Oh, don't worry, I'll be doing that myself. I mean, I get that it's hard to let go of a house and property, but if you find something else that you can move into that's not like 2 stories and easier to manage, then you got to do what you got to do and sell off the other one. But here's the thing, why was he coming back to the house? Unless he was just reliving memories, but you scared the crap out of a boy doing that. But thankfully, they never had another occurrence since he said the man died, and they get to live out the rest of their lives in that house like he did. But that is creepy. Be honest with you, I'll be like telling my mother, yeah, I'll go with you to the store. Don't want nothing like that to happen to me. Knock on wood.
This all started in 2019, right after I graduated with my master's degree. I had just moved to a small, kind of quiet rural town to start my PhD, and my dad and I decided it made more sense to buy a house rather than throw money at rent for the next few years. It was a cute place, not too far from a little dive bar that my dad ended up liking way more than I expected. He met a bunch of locals there and got along with everyone quickly. When they found out where I'd be living, they all told me the same thing. You're gonna love it here. Your next door neighbor is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. So naturally I met him. And yeah, he seemed friendly enough. A little awkward maybe, but nothing that set off any red flags. We exchanged numbers, just in case, right? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? The very day my dad left town, I found out. He texted me while I was out, saying he'd left a gift on my porch. When I got home, I found a hand-painted feeding bowl for my cats in the mailbox. At first, I thought maybe he was just trying to be nice, until he started calling me cutie and sweetie in his texts. That's when I made it clear I wasn't interested in anything romantic. He backpedaled and said he just wanted to be friends.
Okay, first of all, the dad is right to buy a house instead of renting out an apartment because you'll be throwing cash away like it was nothing. But then if somebody you don't even know hardly starts getting all flirtatious and hands you a gift for your cat, that'll be a sign that you might want to get the police to check on him to make sure he ain't no prowler or mentally disturbed person. Let's just put it that way. That is creepy. But I got a feeling he won't let her go at all.
That friendship is all anyone really needs. But the texts kept coming. He'd invite me fishing, leave little gifts on the porch. I was polite, but I mostly ignored him. I didn't want to start a war with my next door neighbor, but I also didn't want anything to do with him. One night, I got a message from the bar manager down the street. She told me don't answer the door if your neighbor comes knocking. Apparently, he had shown up at the bar with a hatchet, talking about hearing voices and threatening to hurt someone if the voices didn't stop. The police were called, but they didn't arrest him. Just took the hatchet and let him go. The bar manager let me crash at her place that night. She told me the cops suspected he was on meth. From then on, I kept my distance even more. But things got weirder. One morning, I walked out to find a dead squirrel placed directly next to my car door. It had obviously been run over and moved there on purpose. When I came back later, the squirrel was gone. And wouldn't you know it? My neighbor texted me saying something like, "Someone or something put a dead squirrel by your car. Don't worry, I moved it for you." Yeah, real subtle. Then came the shotgun shell. I saw it sitting out on the bricks in his yard one day, and when I asked about it, he said it was a warning for anyone who dared walk between our houses. He would constantly message me the second I pulled into the driveway, always watching, always commenting. Around Halloween, he built a full-sized casket and placed it outside with the words, "Here lies the last son of a bitch who played mind games."
Okay, my suspicions are correct. This guy's really one messed up lunatic. If he's threatened to kill somebody because he heard voices in his head and he's carrying a hatchet, the officers should have not only took the hatchet but arrested him that night and maybe get him into a mental hospital, because that guy don't need to be living in a normal neighborhood with that type of condition. And plus, he's not only keeping an eye on her every time she comes into the house and decides to leave a dead squirrel as like a threat or something. That ain't right. And also, I hope somebody calls the cops on him this time for having a coffin that says, "This is what happened to the last SOB." I mean, kids are not supposed to see that language. And you put that on a Halloween decoration, then somebody's going to report you. Just saying.
November 2012. No idea what that even meant, but I knew it wasn't good. Eventually, I stopped responding to his texts completely. 2 weeks later, he chucked a 50-pound concrete flower pot at my front door. I called the police. They told me to file for a stalking no-contact order. Then, a few nights later, my TV screen lit up with a message that someone was trying to cast a video to it. It was him. I declined it. Twice. I filed another report. It was around this time that I had to leave town for a conference. While I was away, someone tried to break into my house. Thankfully, my security system stopped them. Then COVID hit, and I was stuck, alone in my house, next door to my stalker. He started texting me again. Told me he knew he made me uncomfortable, that he was sorry, but that he noticed my hair had gotten longer and I looked beautiful. I took all of this to court, every creepy message, every attempt at manipulation, and laid it out in front of the judge. He didn't deny a thing. He actually agreed with everything I said and claimed he was trying to turn over a new leaf. The judge granted the protection order in March 2020. For a while, things quieted down, at least until he got back on drugs. That's when I found another shotgun shell in my flower bed, right after I started dating my boyfriend. I'm sure it was meant for him. So my boyfriend moved in, fast, but it was the right call. Then came New Year's 2021. I woke up to him screaming obscenities out his window, at my window, for 7 straight minutes. Threats, insults, slurs. He called me a harlot, said he'd blow up his house. I called the cops. They shrugged and told me it wasn't a violation of the order because he never said my name. There's nothing illegal about yelling in your own house, they said. So I did what I had to, parked on the street instead of the driveway, kept the curtains drawn 24/7. I installed 5 security cameras and spent over $1,000 just trying to feel safe in my own home. And still, the harassment continued. He'd yell nonsense in the yard, talk to people who weren't there. One day he shouted, "I have Cheerios on my necklace." Another day it was, "I'll put my penis in your butt." I wish I were making that up. Just last week I heard him screaming, "Someone's gonna die over this sweatshirt. And how about I get my shotgun?" I called the cops, again. They gave him a citation for disturbing the peace. That's it. And last night, he started sawing down his own privacy fence, horizontally, at 1 a.m. outside my bedroom window. Now his fence barely covers anything, and the one piece of comfort I had, knowing I could go in my backyard without him watching, is gone. I'm exhausted. I'm angry. I'm tired of pretending like I'm not scared in my own home. My boyfriend and I are doing everything we can to save up and move, but I'm a PhD student with 4 cats and not a lot of money. Renting isn't an option with that many animals. My dad's agreed to co-sign a new mortgage, and I've picked up a second job. We're close, but until then, I'm stuck. All I want is a safe place to live. Somewhere I don't have to worry about my neighbor throwing concrete pots at my door, or trying to break in, or screaming death threats at 1 a.m. Somewhere I don't have to live in fear. So, yeah, I'm just venting. But if you're listening, please take stalking seriously. Please trust your gut. And if someone gives you a weird vibe, don't wait to set boundaries. I sure wish I had sooner.
Golly. I cannot believe that guy said that he was going to put his thing up her butt. I was like, no normal man would say that out loud. Good lordy. I mean, I don't know why the officers can not only give him a citation, but call the men in the white coats to come and get him. I mean, he's mentally unstable and scaring the crap out of her. And since her boyfriend moved in, he lost it because it seemed like he wanted to be the one to date her. Well, I hate to tell you, dude, she ain't into you, okay? You're creeping her out and you're making her have to go buy over grand worth of security stuff just to protect herself in her own home. Just try to put a little bit of money in like a savings account or in the jar somewhere, and you'll probably have enough money by then to get a new house. But I'm sorry that she had to go through all that.
It happened when I was still just a kid, back when my family moved into this old 2-story house in late October. I remember it was one of those gray, windy mornings that cuts right through your jacket. We were excited to start fresh, even though the house itself had this eerie vibe I couldn't quite put my finger on. The front windows looked like cold, dark eyes watching us from the second floor. But I was a kid, and to me, a new house just meant adventure. While my parents were busy unpacking, I was doing what any curious kid would do, snooping around. Every room, every closet, every little corner of that creaky old place felt like it could be hiding something cool or forgotten.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm curious by nature too. So if I moved into a 2-story house, I'll be checking every door and closet just to make sure that it's not hiding anything dangerous in it that the former owners left behind by accident. I just wanted to point that out real quick, but let's continue.
I didn't find any pirate treasure or secret passageways like I hoped, but I did come across something in the basement I'll never forget. The basement was cold and smelled like damp wood and dust. It was dimly lit, and right away I noticed this random metal hook just dangling from the ceiling. At the time, I figured it was for storage or something. But what really caught my attention was the floor. It was made of the same creaky old boards as the rest of the house, only down there, they seemed even more worn and brittle. I walked around for a bit until, suddenly, one of the boards gave way under my foot. My leg plunged straight through and pain shot up like fire. I started screaming. My parents rushed down and my dad had to carefully pull me out. My leg was sore, but luckily not broken. But then something weird happened. As my dad helped me up, he glanced down into the hole and froze, like completely still. I'll never forget the way his face changed. He didn't say much, just told my mom to take me upstairs right away. No explanation. I was halfway up the steps when I glanced back and saw my dad staring up at the hook, then back down into the hole. Something about it just didn't sit right with me. Later that evening, I heard him arguing on the phone with someone, probably the real estate agent. "You didn't tell me what happened here," he said. He sounded panicked, angry even. The very next day, a moving truck showed up. My parents packed everything up in record time. When I asked what was going on, they just told me to grab my things because we were going back to our old house. That was that. No explanations, no discussions. Just gone. Years later, when I was older and finally asked them about it, they hesitated. I could tell they'd been dreading the question. My dad sat me down and told me what he'd seen in the basement that day. Apparently, under the floor where I fell through, there was a stash of knives, machetes, and other horrific tools. But that wasn't even the worst part. Mixed in with all that were small human remains, fingers, a severed eye, things no one should ever have to find. After I'd gone to bed that night, they called the police. Investigators came and discovered even more body parts hidden beneath the floorboards: legs, arms, even a human head. That house used to belong to a man with a deeply disturbed mind. He had been kidnapping people and torturing them in that very basement, hanging them from that hook in the ceiling. The room was practically soundproof, so no one heard the screams. And this man, according to the reports, was skilled in keeping his victims alive as long as possible, carving them up slowly, taking pleasure in their pain. They said he kept body parts as twisted trophies under the floorboards. Hearing all of that made my stomach turn. I'd been walking around in the very place where people were brutalized, completely unaware. I thought I was hunting for forgotten toys or trinkets, not someone's nightmare. To this day, I can't get the images out of my head. I still see the hook, still hear imagined screams in the dark. Even though I was too young to understand it then, I know now exactly what I stumbled into.
I wouldn't blame him for packing up and moving, because if I found out that house used to be used as a serial killer's killing area, then I don't want nothing to do with that house no more. If it was me, after I would get the police down there to investigate and get all the body parts and weapons and that hook out, I'm going to get permission from the county to see if I can burn that place down to the ground, because nobody else should move in a place that was used for nightmare fueled killings, that's for sure. Ooh, man, that's spooky. But I'm glad they told him when he got older, because I know he would be scarred for life if they told him when he was younger. One quick move into the new house turns out to be a disaster. And you might as well go back to where you lived at before. In other words, what you thought was going to be your new forever home turned out to be a nightmare shack, basically.
This all started when I first moved into a new place back in the summer of 2019. I had just started a new job working night shifts at a hotel, so I was used to being up during the hours most people were asleep. The living situation was kind of unique. I lived with my landlord, her elderly mom, and my best friend Daisy. The house was in a quiet residential area, not too far from a busy intersection marked by a stop sign that cars would constantly idle at, especially late at night. Because street parking was a nightmare, my landlord, who'd lived there her entire life and knew pretty much everyone on the block, let me park across the street in the empty driveway of a vacant house. It was perfect, because when I parked, I could see our front porch in my rearview mirror. Now, Daisy and I were super close. We met in college and pretty much did everything together. That summer, we had this little routine where we'd go out late at night, grab some greasy fast food, and drive along the coast with the windows down and the music blasting. Just something to unwind from life, you know? One Thursday night around 1:45 in the morning, we'd just gotten back from one of our drives. We were parked in that vacant driveway, finishing our food and letting the last few songs play out. I remember my windows were up by then, but we both heard the rumble of a big vehicle rolling up to the stop sign. I glanced in my rear view and, of course, it was one of those creepy, beat-up white vans. I joked, "Hey Daisy, look at that sketchy white van," like I was narrating the beginning of a horror movie. Except, it kind of was. From the passenger seat of the van, this super thin guy leaned over and started snapping pictures of our house. 5, maybe 6 photos, with the flash on, like he wasn't even trying to hide it. Daisy and I just froze. We didn't say anything. We just stared at each other, both of us fully understanding that something was seriously off. The van took off down the street almost immediately after. The next morning, we told our landlord everything. I expected her to be shocked, maybe even worried. Instead, she just kind of brushed it off, said this wasn't the first time a tenant had complained about a van hanging around. But anyone taking pictures of your house at almost 2 a.m. isn't doing it for innocent reasons. That much was obvious. Time passed, and then the news about COVID started making waves. As the virus spread and lockdowns became a thing, something strange happened. The van stopped showing up. I'd been keeping an eye on it after that night, and I even managed to catch most of the license plate after seeing it a few more times. It always showed up between 1 and 1:30 a.m., always from the same direction. The van would stop at the sign for an unusually long time, then suddenly peel out like it was fleeing something that wasn't there. Then, just like that, it stopped. Right at the start of February 2020. No more drive-bys, no more photos, no flash, nothing. I figured maybe the person got sick, or maybe the pandemic threw off their whole routine. Whatever the reason, I was just relieved. Eventually, I let it go. I stopped staying up to monitor that corner of the street, stopped obsessing over the license plate, stopped documenting every sighting. But even now, if I hear a loud diesel engine pass by at night, my heart rate spikes. I still tense up, wondering if that van is coming back. I've thought about digging back into it, maybe even following up with the police when the shelter-in-place orders are lifted, just to be sure he's really gone, because something about it never sat right.
If that landlord lady known about people saying something about a van going by the house taking pictures, then she should have already called the cops about it and made a report. So if they came back, they could call the cops again and be like, we got him. But nope. She figured that was just a normal thing, which it ain't. It's serious. But thankfully, since the pandemic happened, they did not see him ever again. But I still would have made a report and gone to the station just to see if they got any leads on this person. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Tales content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day.